Hello, hello. Anybody there? Can you guys see me? A few minutes to see if everyone can see me and hear me okay. Just if you can type, I guess, in the comment section. It says I'm live, so I hope I'm doing this right. We will find out. Anybody see me? Can you hear me? Let's see. I don't see anyone yet, so I'll just wait a couple minutes. It says I'm live. I hope I did this right. Hello, hello. Give it a couple minutes. Okay, so I don't see any comments, so I don't know if I'm live or not. Let's see. Can anybody hear me or see me? Okay, good. All right. I see at least a couple people on, so that's enough to get me started. So I'm excited to be here for my pep talk today. My name is LaChina Robinson, and I am honored to be affiliated with the Winning Edge. I've known Maria and Corrine for long time, and it's been fun to watch them grow and what they're doing in their individual fields. Corrine has always been brilliant, you know. She was kind of like that student that stood out, that was polished, that knew all the answers, who was really smart, so it doesn't surprise me all that she's doing. And Maria is just the bomb, period. It was funny, I was watching her last night on Sideline with Duke and Michigan State, and she was just fantastic. It's amazing just how when you have a gift, you are just elevated, and she deserves everything she has and everything that is to come. Watch out, Robin Roberts. But anyway, my name is LaChina Robinson, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I am a basketball analyst, and I work both in men's basketball and women's basketball, but primarily women. That is where my heart is. That is what I love to do. And I went to Wake Forest, played basketball there, had a lot of fun. switched majors a bunch of times. Came in thinking that I was going to go to law school, changed my mind about that. Thought I wanted to be a psychologist, took the intro class, and yeah, that was rough enough to make me change majors again. And I ended up in sociology, really because I liked the classes more than anything. And I said, well, I'll figure out the rest of that afterwards, but I'm going to do something that I enjoy. So that's exactly what I did at Wake. And it was great being a student athlete. I had a wonderful experience. When I left, I decided I wanted to get into athletic administration. And so I did an internship at the ACC, which was fantastic because it exposed me to lots of different schools, all the schools in the league, every sport championship, whether it was field hockey or soccer. So it was a great learning experience for me and a great bridge from being a student athlete and then going on into the real world. After that, I was offered an opportunity at Georgia Tech and jumped on it. Came down to Atlanta, worked with the women's basketball staff, but more on the administrative side. I had decided I wanted to be an athletics director. So I was really doing like planning travel, doing those kind of things that you know, you do more as an administrator. So I knew I didn't want to coach, didn't go to practice, do all that stuff. Again, I was more on the administrative side, you know, handling a lot of the areas there, compliance, marketing, fundraising, game operations, all those kind of things. After about 4 or 5 years, I decided that I didn't want to get into athletic administration. So I loved my job. I actually could have stayed at Georgia Tech and probably did that forever because I have a passion for student athletes and definitely wanted to use my experience at Wake Forest to help to shape young women and to mentor young women and to help them in that space, which I think that 4 years is an incredible 4 years of your life where you do a lot of learning and growing. So from there, what happened next was television. I pretty much went through a time in my life where I did a lot of self-assessment and asked other people, you know, peer assessment as well. So talk to people about, you know, what are my strengths? What do you see? What do I do well? Got a lot of feedback, which was fun, but also tough because, you know, hearing the real deal from people that are willing to be honest sometimes can be hard. But it was good for me because I needed to know where I fit in the world. And I had somewhat of an idea, but that was a turning point in my life. So ultimately I ended up getting into television. And I want to talk to you guys today about how I did that. This time is really about or for people who are in transition in their career or maybe looking to get into a certain career field. I was in transition obviously at that time. So I wanted to share a couple things with you guys, both around the social media space and in networking that you may be able to use to get to wherever it is that you want to go. I'll tell you this, nothing I'm going to say is like groundbreaking. Just a lot of the little detail things that I could think of. I watched some of the other talks and I love Siobhan, did a great job. Like I tried to listen to some of them and get an idea of what you guys have heard so I can kind of fill in the gaps. I will warn you, I'm left-handed, so I think backwards sometimes. I'm right brain. So if I say something that is confusing or you're like, what in the world is she talking about? Type me a little message. And it looks like, yeah, looks like I'm getting messages. So you can send me a little message, and if you have any questions, you can type them in there as well, and I'll try to take them as I go along. I see my friend Tish is on. Hey, Tish. I see Siobhan is on. Yay. Wonderful. And it says you got me. All right, so let's talk about networking. So what I'm going to share with you are my 5 quick tips to effective networking. Now, I tried to use a little aid here. The trouble is going to be, I don't know if this is backwards to you guys or if it moves in the same way that it looks for me, left to right. But, oh well, I'm going to use it anyway because it keeps me organized. So anyway, okay, so 5 quick tips to effective networking. Again, we're talking about little things, little details that I learned along the way. Hopefully they will help you in wherever you are in your journey. Number 1 is Somebody said it is backwards, but it's all good. Oh, dang. All right, so I'll just hold it up for a quick second then. The first tip is to get unawkward. What I learned about the networking space, especially when I was younger, was that I kind of felt like the people I was trying to network with who were already established were like on this throne. Like they were these people that were untouchable and they knew everything. And, you know, I needed to come in buttoned up and I couldn't make any mistakes or fumble when I was talking. So I had this grand idea of what that networking situation would be like. And to be honest with you, those people are people just like you. They're not expecting you to come into a situation where you're networking or meeting someone and be perfect. Like they want to see the authentic you. So don't be afraid, get unawkward, and just get used to that process of talking to people, to feeling confident in those situations, you know, to feeling it out. And just the more you do it, just like anything, the easier it becomes. So you walk into a room, say you're going to a networking event. You already make up your mind, I'm gonna meet 5 people. I'm gonna stretch outside of myself and I'm gonna meet 5 people before I leave here. Walk up to them, handshake, introduce yourself, but it's only as awkward as you make it. So get unawkward and don't be afraid to network. So that's my tip number 1. After get unawkward, target influencers. So one thing I noticed about my mentality early on when I was starting to get into the workforce versus kind of what I see now is I used to walk into a meeting when I was younger and I'm like, you know, who's here? You know, I'm grabbing the paper when I sit down. Let me read about these speakers. I thought I was doing my job. Your homework has to be done in advance. And actually, it needs to be done far in advance because you need to target people that are going to be able to help you get to where you want to go in your career. So if you're figuring out what networking events you want to do, you are going to look for the people. For example, I may look for someone that works at ESPN. I may look for someone who's an analyst. You know, I may look for someone who's a producer before I get to that event. So when I get there, I'm already targeting some people that I need to meet. Or maybe you're following that person on social media, you already know where they're gonna be. They're saying, oh, I'm going to be speaking at this panel. Oh, I need to be there. And I need to be there because that is one of the influencers in the circle that I am trying to get into or in the career that I'm trying to get into. So target those people and try to find ways to interact with them that are natural. You may reach out to them by email or phone, may not hear back, whatever the case is. But if they're going to be at that event, they may talk to people afterwards. You may get to mingle with them during, but don't just don't show up anywhere. When you're trying to build your career profile, not to say you don't step outside the box sometimes, but be intentional. And you'll hear me say that word a lot about the people that you're connecting with. So targeting your influencers. The next thing is developing your touch points. Now, what your touch points are is once you've figured out who those influencers are, try to figure out all the people that you know that are in their circle. So how many people that you have contact with and they have contact with can you get to make an introduction, for example? Or maybe a touch point is at a special event, as I mentioned before, that both of you will be at. Maybe a touch point is they just had a recent article in a magazine and you read it. So you want to reach out via social media and say, hey, this is a great article on Robin Roberts. And so that is a touch point. All of these opportunities are chances for them to not only see you, but to be reintroduced to you in a different way, maybe through someone that they trust. So these are all networking touch points in ways that you can kind of bridge the gap with people that you don't know, that you need to know to get into the workspace that you want to be in. Now, this is a big key. Don't get offended, follow up. So everybody's busy, right? And there's been times it's happened to me. I've reached out to someone I want to network with or connect with, and they don't hit me back. And you know, early on in my career, I was like, man, they never called me back. Never got an email. I saw them. They didn't even recognize or whatever the case may be. Don't get offended. Send another email. People get busy. You know, I'm not saying you have to email them every week. I try to say, if you haven't heard from someone in a month, that's a good time frame to then reach out again. people just forget. They may want to, they may be thinking about it, but in that moment, it's like, okay, they forgot. So what? You need them. So continue to pursue someone that you know is going to be a key contact. Don't be offended by it. Don't take it personal. People are just busy. Not a big deal. Got it? And my last tip for effective networking is developing your street team. So we often feel like networking is something that we have to do ourselves, right? And this kind of ties back to the touch points. Like we have to go to events, or we have to reach out to people for coffee, or we have to try to meet this person or that person. But your street team is a combination of different types of people. Now, one group, in my opinion, and I say I should have developed my street team when I was in college, but one group is people who have skill sets that you don't, right? So say I have a friend that's good at video. That is part of, she's or he's going to be part of my street team, because I need someone who's good at video, so you can show me how to do some things for social media. Or maybe there's someone whose strength is, I don't know, maybe they're good with cars, and you got a car that keeps, you know, break it down on you, but this is your friend and that's their skill. So you may have, part of your street team may be, you know, these people that have a skill set that you don't, that you guys can exchange and help each other out. For the purposes of networking, your street team are the people who believe in you, who are willing to make connections with other people, who will bring your name up when there are opportunities. Some people call it sponsors, but I think it's even beyond that, because sponsors are usually that person that will pick up the phone and say, okay, you got a job opening, I've got somebody for you. Your street team is kind of that reoccurring group of people that you have in your network that are just always championing for you. And especially if they're in that circle of influence. So you may have a friend who's hired at a company that you want to work at. Well, when they're in meetings and when they're having discussions in their think tanks within that organization, all it takes is one person in that room to bring your name up. That is part of your street team. That is someone who believes in you. When I say street team, you think about those people who hand out club flyers, right? So you're in the street and they're like, hey, you got to come to this party. Hey, you got to come to this party. You know, they're out. It may not be them performing, but they believe enough in the cause to drop your name or to bring you up or to get you connected with the people that you need to be connected with, making introductions. So identify that team, know who those people are, make sure you're continuing to touch them from those different touch points. And yeah, that should help you to develop your network. All right, so social media. First of all, let me ask you this. Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay, I see some people chiming in. Thank you guys for your comments. And yes, I did make up that word unawkward. I make up words. I also misspell words. So if you see someone here is misspelled, yep, that's my word. All right, so we're going to talk about social media. Now, where social media really impacted my career was this. When you think about basketball analysts, you think about national championship winners, you think about gold medalists, whether it's Kara Lawson, or you think about Rebecca Lobo, people like that. Well, that wasn't me. Not even close. And then also, I didn't major in communications. You know, I kind of had this epiphany late in my career, like, oh man, I think I should get into broadcasting. Way late. So my challenge was, how was I going to close the gap? How could I appear to be qualified for a position that on paper, you know, doesn't say I could do? And I didn't necessarily have the credentials that other people that were doing it had. So that's where social media really came into play for me. I was able to establish a profile of being an expert through social media. And I'll talk to you about a few ways in which you can do that. So the overall idea, and these are more of my reasons why you need to use social media. You want to become synonymous. So for me, it was anything that was going on with women's basketball, I needed to be there. So if it was a game that was close enough for me to drive, if it was, some hot topic going on Twitter, I needed to chime in on it. Like, it needed to be a situation where it was like, oh, women's basketball? I'm surprised LaChina's not here. And so you can do that through social media, whether, again, it's tweeting on a hot topic, it's pictures of you at different events. Your name or your face becomes synonymous with whatever that field is that you're interested in getting in, and people are starting to say, oh, okay, it's an acting opportunity. Well, so-and-so is always, in the discussions and, on the scene when it comes to actors and actresses and different things. I know nothing about that, so that probably sounds crazy, but I decided to throw out there as an idea. So become synonymous, and social media can help you do that in that way by, again, posting about those consistent topics that you're passionate about. Social media also helps you find connections. So as we talked about our street team, obviously on your social media networks, you're following people who you have an interest maybe in getting to know, or maybe that you already know that are working in that field. Well, if I want to meet Robin Roberts, I may not know that one of my good friends already knows Robin. And I see a picture of them at an event, or I see that they are connected in some way through an outside organization. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they help you. LinkedIn, they really help you to make those connections. So if you're paying attention, that may help you to get in touch with someone of influence or someone that you need to be in touch with in order to get to that next level of where you're trying to be. So pay attention to those things as well. And you don't always have to comment on everything that's going on, but strategically keep your eyes on relationships, because that may also show a path to where you're going, or a path that you didn't know you needed to have. So I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, could be wrong, that talks about the 10,000 hours, right? So you need to put 10,000 hours of work in to be considered an expert. Well, why not make that a visible 10,000 hours? Like, we're always working behind the scenes. I know for me, it's watching film, it's talking to athletes, it's learning from coaches. Well, again, you're trying to develop this profile of consistency on social media. You're trying to become synonymous with whatever it is you're passionate about. So put that 10,000 hours out there. Let people know that you're putting in the work to become an expert. Again, in my situation, I didn't have the same 10,000 hours that Rebecca Lobo had or Carol Lawson had, because they had playing experience far beyond what I could give. But I could read, and I could, again, watch film and articles. I could find different ways to add up to my 10,000 hours. And why not share that? As you're going along, why not put that out there for potential employers, or put that out there for people even that you're going to be working with, because you'll see how the respect level for what you're doing and the grind that you're putting in every day really starts to add up. And that's very important as far as your reputation. Making sure this is, there aren't any questions. Anybody have any questions? See some good comments here. The winning edge. You have a network of influence. Persistent. Be intentional. Letitia, I see you. Strategic networking. Siobhan. Okay, so we got some people. Oh, Siobhan. How did you grow your online presence over the years? So again, it really started with Twitter. I remember this guy, I was at an NCAA convention, and this guy was like, man, you got to get on Twitter. This was the year before President Obama was elected, which I remember he had used it strategically some as far as his first election. And I was like, what is Twitter? Like, what is this about? So timing was everything for me, because I kind of got in on Twitter early, like before people really knew what it was. So I just kept following people, and I was looking for people that were talking about the things that I was into and learning it as a tool. And again, it's branding yourself too, so people know when they come to my feed, they're going to find out about women's basketball. Like, my first Abby was a woman with a microphone and a because I want people to come to that space and know what they're going to get. So I think it's, developing that consistency, not trying to be too broad in terms of the things. And, you know, I do have an inspirational piece and I'll comment on things here and there, but the most consistent thing that I'm talking about is about women's basketball. So being consistent, using visuals, like again, my Abby was something that, you know, helped to build my brand. And I think just being interactive, you know, talking to people, engaging, providing that consistent information. I mean, I've been on Twitter, I guess now since like 2007, maybe? Could be wrong. I think it's 2007, if it's been around that long. Anyway, so it does take time, but, and just being you know, be you in that social media space, and people show different sides of you. Don't be afraid. Hey, we got work, but I may post something my mom said because she's hilarious. Like, we all have mom that say funny things, and I'm not really out here trying to get followers, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to provide a service, you know, for women's basketball, which is an undercovered sport. I want people to come and be able to get information and catch up on what's going on with women's basketball in the space that I provide. So I hope that answered your question. All right, couple more things as we finish up social media. Social media also helps you to develop a reputation of consistency. So we kind of just answered that question. So back in the day, times have changed so much. You know, you would submit your application, you may put your resume in for a job, that kind of thing. These days, it's all about who you know, because employers need to know who they can trust. So it's people who pick up the phone and say, listen, I know this girl. That's the networking piece. But you can also build a reputation of consistency through social media. If I've been talking about women's basketball for the last 7, 8, 9 years on my social media platform, you better believe that's what I'm passionate about. Like, and you show it from those 10,000 hours you're putting in, to the pictures you're posting, to the articles you're reading, to the games you're watching. So what are you consistently saying in your social media space? People then know, you know what, I can trust this girl. I know that if there's something going on with women's basketball, she either knows it or she has an idea who does. So use your social media to develop what you're going to consistently bring to the workplace, to the work world, because what you bring consistently to your social media space ultimately is a reflection of what you're passionate about and what you're willing to work hard for. Last key, number 5, to reasons why you need to use your social media in the career space is, again, to further reinforce your brand. So, you know, one thing that was important for me along the journey of my career was really figuring out what I stood for. Like, taking the time. I talked about self-assessment. So, you know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you passionate about? How do people see you? Like, sometimes we don't take enough time in developing our brand to really look thoroughly at those things. And so when I did that, it was much easier for me to develop in the social media space, because I knew the things that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to spend my time doing every day. And so then you find ways to reinforce that. Other people will start to say, you know what, wow, like, this girl really does her homework, or I can see that she's at these games and talking to these players. And so again, you're reinforcing the brand of who you are, and social media can do that in so many different ways. You know, something else I'm passionate about outside of basketball is in mentoring, you know, and mentoring young women, especially for me, because when I was one, I was lost. So I'm passionate about providing services that help young women now. I'm very passionate about leadership development and people figuring out what they want to do with their lives, seeing their strengths and going after their dreams. So that's who I am in my social space. And whether it's using a hashtag, it's how I say something, or what I'm posting, pictures, what I'm reading, those kind of things, you all want it to go back to your brand, and social media provides a way for you to do that. All right, I had a couple of miscellaneous things, but before I get to those, does anyone have any questions? I think we have like 2 minutes left. All right, so my miscellaneous things. Number 1 is verbiage. one small tweak I made in trying to network was going from, do you have an opportunity, to, can you give me some feedback? Like, everyone's looking for a job, right? The job market is extremely competitive. Well, once I went from, okay, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking to be hired, to, can you give me some feedback? When I was reaching out to people who were influencers, is, could you give me feedback and can I spend some time picking your brain? There's less pressure in those situations, I think, and then you're also showing that you know that you have room to grow and you're open to suggestions and you're looking to learn. So just a small tweak in verbiage, but I think that's something that helped me a little bit. Show up looking the part. I remember I would go for interviews for television networks, and people would say, well, you need to show up like you're on television, because again, I didn't have that same resume that other people in this position had, so I had to show up and give them a visual of what I could look like in that space. Like, I'm gonna know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna show up looking professional when I do it, so that I look like someone who is ready for the opportunity, who can be trusted, show up looking the part. Never apply for a job without a phone call. I hear young people say all the time, hey, I applied for this job, I'm waiting to hear back. Your number one thing is finding out who the hiring manager is, okay? Because once you submit that application, it needs to be followed up with a phone call with someone from your street team that knows someone that can speak for you and vouch for you as far as the job that you can do in that space. So never apply without a phone call. The last thing, a little miscellaneous piece, and I know I'm throwing a lot out here to you guys, but the last piece I would say is, when you're looking for a mentor or you're looking for advice to get into a field, don't skip the people who are like early on in that field, like maybe a little further than you, 5 years, whatever. But if you go talk to a president of an organization, which that's fine, I'm all for that, the way they got into that field is going to be different from the way that people are getting into the field now. So do not overlook those who are just starting, because their journey is likely to look a little bit more like yours will, because they'll be in their first 5 years of it, or even their first 10 years of it. But someone who's 20, 30 years in and hasn't applied for a job in a long time, yes, they're going to be able to give you advice about hiring, but in terms of just different strategies and things like that, it's okay to have, some of my mentors are younger than me because they're the bomb. But they were able to help me understand the earlier phases rather than me reaching out to people who had been far elevated from where I am now. So it looks like that is it. Well, it's 12:32. I see that we had some people chime in. I just want to say thank you guys for those that were able to join us for this Facebook Live. I remember watching Kareen and Maria when they first launched The Winning Edge, and they did it on, like, I think it was like a Gmail chat, and I was like, wow, this is dope, like, I'm gonna do this is awesome. And of course I never did. So it comes full circle, and they are still growing in all their platforms. So they have Facebook Live now that they're using so brilliantly, and they got me on the Facebook Live. So thank you so much for this. Hopefully, if you have any questions, I can be reached. I'm on social media, Twitter at LaChina Robinson, Instagram at Lives to Inspire. You can email me, LaChina Robinson at LaChinaRobinson.com. But hopefully I didn't confuse you guys too much with my left hand, right brain, and gave you some tips that may help you. Little details. I'm all about the little things. So keep putting in the work, become an expert. And really quickly, I'm being asked to recap my 5 points. So let me just pull them up, make sure I got everything. I'm not going to force y'all to look at my little thing again. So just to recap, 5 quick tips to effective networking. Get unawkward, target your influencers, develop your touch points, don't get offended, follow up, and develop your street team. The 5 reasons why social media is important. You want to become synonymous. It helps you find connections. You're making your 10,000 hours visible. en route to becoming an expert. You can develop a reputation of consistency, and it's an opportunity to further reinforce your brand. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and have a fantastic day. Live to inspire.